yeah, you know, sometimes I'll go on stage and I'll pour my heart out into a song, and then it'll really, really resonate with somebody. And I'll come off stage, I'll be exhausted. And someone will want to talk to me for an hour about this one time they saw this, or they did this when they were younger. And it's really great. It's really, really great that my art can help inspire these feelings in people. But at the same time, you know, I'm not a therapist. I don't have infinite energy, and I want to be able to be there for, I don't know, my fans or people who are supporting me, but sometimes I'm not equipped for it. And I wish people knew that more. It's this weird sort of dehumanization of, like, not to call myself a celebrity, but, you know, like people in the spotlight. How athletes or actors, they're always constantly expected to be receptive to their fans or, you know, understanding of feedback. Well, my dad and I are no longer on speaking terms for a whole host of reasons. But, you know, if you can glean from my childhood, I don't think it's very surprising of an outcome. My mom, she alternates between being sort of ambivalent to supportive. Like every once in a while I'll show her a clip of me, I don't know, performing at a festival to, I don't know, like 8,000, 10,000, 30,000 people. Or I'll be singing a song that she really likes, and she'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you, that's so cool. And then other days I'll just wake up and then I'll get a lecture from her about how I need to find a real job and there's no job security in music, and why don't I just go to an office and get a real salary? What am I gonna do when I retire? Just, I don't know. I tried the office thing. I really didn't like it.
Hi, I'm Sharon Landon, and welcome to my show, Old Asian Lady. Today, my guest is Vicky Sun. She is a vocalist, singer, and a songwriter. Vicky, thank you for coming in to talk to me today.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So what would you say? I hear you are still jet lagged from your holiday.
Yeah, I just spent 2 weeks in Brazil, and it's 11 hours behind Taiwan. And there was, oh my gosh, it was a really complicated flight because I decided to go through Istanbul because it was the shortest total travel time, but it meant I had to do basically 2 back-to-back, like 12-hour flights.
Oh, right.
So my time zones are all messed up right now.
Back-to-back 12 hours, 24 hours?
Basically.
Oh my gosh, okay. Well, we're super glad that you made it.
I'm very glad to be here.
All right, so musician. Have you ever, I mean, did you always wanted to be a musician ever since you were young, or how'd you get into it?
I mean, the first album I ever purchased was Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears in 2000. And then basically since then I was just like, I'm gonna be a pop star when I grow up. But actually, no, my first aspiration in life, and I don't remember this, but according to my parents, when, you know, like in primary school, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And all the other kids are like, you know, I don't like astronaut or lawyer or doctor. And then I said, apparently I said I wanted to be the first female president of Taiwan.
Oh, really? Huh? Is that out the window, or are you still contemplating it?
I mean, Taiwan's already taken it, and she's done a great job. So that's definitely out the window. But yeah, I've always really loved music. I've never studied it formally. Like I've had piano classes, flute lessons, whatever. I was in concert band and choir groups and stuff through like grade school, middle school, high school. But never had any formal musical education. So my bachelor's actually is a double major in international politics and French literature, and then
politics, president.
Yeah, it was not my choice. It was not my choice.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. Did your parents kind of make really? Well, what were they thinking? Because to force you into that, was it because you said you wanted to be a president, or I mean, I don't know if parents can really force, but they can, right?
Have you met Asian parents?
Did you have the typical tiger mom?
No, it was my father. It was
oh, really?
Like, like, oh, haha, I'm gonna send you off to the States because I want a better education for you. But like, you do everything I want, otherwise you have to pay for school yourself. And it's like, I'm 14, I don't have like 40 grand.
Right.
So, sure thing, Dad. Whatever you say. Like,
yeah. So okay, he sent you off to the States. When you were born in Taiwan?
I was born in Taiwan.
Okay, you sound like American, but like he sent you off to the States. When did you go to the States?
When I was 14. So for ninth grade boarding school in Pennsylvania.
Oh, Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's really close to where I used to live. We used to go to Pennsylvania quite a bit when I was living in Maryland. Okay, and 14, ninth grade. And did you already know English before that?
I did. My mother, brilliant and confusing woman that she is, has never lived abroad, hasn't really studied any foreign languages. Like she knows Japanese. She took like Japanese at community college, but she got it into her head that I needed to speak English. And then so she found like the best like preschool program that she could find in Taipei that was only in English. Like a lot of programs now, and even back then, when I was growing up in Taiwan, were bilingual. But she found one that was only in English. And so, yeah, she sent me there. And yeah, so I basically grew up speaking only English in school, in preschool, and then Taiwanese at home. And I didn't learn Mandarin until I went to primary school.
Oh,
in first grade.
Interesting. Wow. So, were you in international schools, or you were in? It was a local school only in English. Wow.
The preschool program, and then once you hit primary school, they had like after-school language arts programs, almost like Bushiban, but it was just basically a second school.
Okay.
And it was a really, really fun program. I feel like it's like, this show is sponsored by, no. No, it was a really, really great program. And then at the time, they only had offerings up until I think 4th grade. And I remember I was the first like 5th grade class they ever had, but then they couldn't find a teacher to do 6th grade in middle school, so that was it. Like I went into private tutoring after that. But now I'm pretty sure they have a pretty full program, and they're in Dan. Like.
So why was your mom so set on you on English? Because you said she knew some Japanese.
She, through like her social circles, had met a few really, really incredible women who had like emigrated abroad to either Canada or the States or Australia, and had like come back to have kids or whatever. And she always thought they were really, like strong-minded, independent, like charming, charismatic women. And yeah, she just got it into her head that that was the future that I needed to have, and I'm endlessly grateful for that.
Okay. Yeah. So your dad made you go into politics or whatever like that, but you went there in high school, 9th grade. So what was it like over there? I mean, your parents you just went, boarding school. You went to boarding school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how was it over there in boarding school?
It was a really big culture shock because there were more cows than people. Like,
they say there's more sheep than people in New Zealand, but in Pennsylvania, was it farm country?
It was farm country. Like I was deep in like Amish country. Like, I was really close to Lancaster.
Yeah. We visited Lancaster.
Going to Walmart, we passed by like horse and buggies on the side of the field. Like it was deep country. Our town had one McDonald's, one Subway, one Chinese food restaurant, one bowling alley that is now closed, and then 2 gas stations that were right across from each other. Like it was a super, super small town.
So why did your dad choose or parents choose that place?
I applied through one of those like 留学补助 or whatever programs here in Taiwan. And then they had a fair and a bunch of schools came and applied to a bunch of schools. And I was not a great student academically in Taiwan or in the States. I got a lot better in higher education, but for lower education, I think I really struggled with the structure of everything and the way that I like to learn, I like to ask questions really didn't jive with Taiwanese education
system.
So my grades weren't great and I didn't get into too many schools, but yeah, I got accepted into Mercersburg and I went there and it was a really great experience. I really, really loved it.
Okay, so Lancaster, when you're there, culture shock. What types of things, aside from having Amish kind of super near you and horse and buggy in the 21st century or 20th century? What is it? 21st century already. Yeah,
very close to 20th. How did it feel? It felt great actually because I was feeling really stuck and stifled in Taiwan, and then tensions with my family were pretty bad at that point. And I really wasn't enjoying school. I wasn't fitting in. I never really fit in with a lot of like the social groups here. So although initially it wasn't my choice to leave and I didn't want to leave, but when I got there, it felt really good.
Yeah.
The hardest adjustment was probably the food because I'm used to having, like 烫青菜, 炒青菜, like stir-fried or like blanched vegetables. And then I get there and then their idea of like a healthy vegetable was like a boiled to death broccoli with melted cheese over it. Or like mashed potatoes loaded with cream. And I'm like, can I just have some like clean vegetables that haven't been boiled to death? Like, please.
And this was at the boarding school.
This was at the boarding school. But I had a newly discovered love for waffles with butter and syrup, like a lot of syrup.
Crunchy, has to be really crispy waffles though.
I'm getting very distracted right now. It's not about the waffles.
What about that?
No, I remember it was the first time I think I had a sort of realization that my physical state could really affect my mental well-being because I realized at one point I was getting really like short-tempered and cranky and like nothing was really wrong. But I just felt myself getting more and more flustered and tight. And then I couldn't put a name on it. I just thought it was maybe like, I don't know, teenage hormones or whatever. And then one day we walked into town and went to the Chinese food place. And then I took a bite of white rice, like steamed white rice. And I was just like, like I felt my entire body just relax. And I was like, oh, I had a rice craving.
Wow. Yeah, I wonder if it's partly too because, you mentioned culture shock before, but just the fact of being in a place where things are so different than what you're used to, food-wise,
temperature,
everything. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you had to go through some of the winters there. Then, right?
Oh, yeah. Like living through snow, like slipping constantly, having my hair freeze, is...
You didn't ever try to go... One of my friends, when he was younger, he was so stupid. Middle of winter, he went and stuck his tongue on the pole, and then it got stuck.
No,
it's crazy. Yeah, that was a guy though, because women don't normally do stuff like that.
Oh, that's a
crazy
whole
things like
conversation I could get into. That's a whole conversation I could get into about a whole host of reasons about why, like, boys will be boys is just complete, like, propaganda. But anyways.
Okay. So how long did it take you to get adjusted then to living in the States?
Pretty quickly, I think. I got adjusted pretty quickly.
Well, language is not a problem for sure.
Language is not a problem.
Yeah.
I don't really remember struggling too much. There was a small community of Taiwanese students there. I think we had about 15 or 16 Taiwanese students.
Oh, wow.
And the whole student body was about, I think, 400 people. So it wasn't huge. We had a really good teacher-to-student ratio. They really took care of international students. And it's just like a gorgeous campus, really gorgeous campus. Bit bored, you know, bit stuck on campus, but there was a lot to do, and I was getting to know so many new people from so many new countries. And then, you know, participating in so many different, like, after-schools programs that weren't available to me in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So that was really awesome.
Yeah, because I think, you know, we talked earlier about the Taiwan school system, and you didn't fit into the box that oftentimes a lot of students, local students get stuck in. And I was just thinking too, especially because if you have this artistic thing in you, you know, it's not so much geared necessarily into academics as much, you know. So, yeah, so over there, then you finished boarding school, and was there anything that made you decide to stay? Because you went to university there.
I mean, that was always the plan. There was no point for me to study in the States for high school and then come back to college in Taiwan. Not to mention, because I technically didn't finish middle school in Taiwan, I don't even know how I would go about applying for university.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, I kept up with reading and writing Chinese. Like, my father really insisted on that. You know, I remember I came back for the holidays and he was like, all right, you know, like, let's get on a regimen for the summer. You gotta make sure you do all of, like, your summer homework or whatever. And I said, oh, we don't have, like, homework over the summers. It's vacation. I don't really want to do homework. And he was like, homework is for foreigners. Taiwanese people, like, Taiwanese kids don't get, like, no, sorry, vacation is for foreigners. Taiwanese people don't get vacation. Like, you come back, you gotta, like, he gave me, like, books to read. He sent me off to, like, different, like, internships, different volunteer things.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess, would you say that your parents were typical Taiwanese parents in terms of that relating to your...
In some ways, I think. I think in many cases, it's usually the mom who does most of like the more overbearing. The dad's usually like sort of more detached, laid back, like, I don't really care. Like,
Yeah.
But in my case, it was a bit different.
Okay. Was your dad like in business or something like that, where he was super focused and super driven?
Yeah, like self-made businessman. I was like, if I can do it, you can do it. I didn't have a choice growing up.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I also don't have a choice, Dad, but in a very different way.
Yeah. Oh, let me think. No, let's not. We won't talk about the different. But so then it was kind of you had, whenever you came home, you still were like studying. It wasn't like yeah.
I was forced. I mean, I wanted to study language. I've always loved studying languages. So when I was 8, against my wishes, my mom pulled me out of ballet classes, like crushing my dreams of becoming like, you know, queen ballerina or whatever.
Wow.
And then put me in French tutoring for 3 hours every week. And that's like French. Okay. 3 hours every Saturday with 2 other kids my age. And then my teacher, my French teacher, who actually was my preschool teacher previously. And it was fun for what it was at the time, but it was still very stifling for me because it was like, oh, you know, 3 hours every Saturday. And so, you know, I got introduced to, at that point, that was my, 4th language, very, very early. And then I went to the States and I came back and I was like, I feel like studying another language. Like, so I was like, I want to go study German. And then my dad initially was like, no, don't waste your time on that. But the moment that he saw there was like a benefit to it, he was like, you need to focus more on studying German. It's like, this was my hobby. Like, why are you ruining it? Why are you ruining it? So yeah, I at one point I was taking like intensive German classes, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then like advanced level French classes on Saturdays. So, and on top of that, like going to volunteer for different like political campaigns, or like working part-time at his office. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Oh, was your dad in politics? No. So
business.
So why did he, I mean, so if you had your own choice, what would you have studied?
I actually initially really wanted to go into like psychology or anthropology.
Okay, this is when you got older and you kind of already knew what.
High school, around high school.
Yeah.
You know, I remember talking to him about that and he actually laughed at me. He's like, you know, to be like in psychiatry or psychology, you have to go through med school. I'm like, he's like, you think you can handle med school?
Oh, you're great.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
Crush you down.
Thanks. Love you too. But then once I got to college, so my first year in college, I went to a small liberal arts college on Staten Island.
Yeah.
And my first semester, they assigned me a bunch of classes that I didn't pick. But like, you know, they were like, oh, what's your projected major? And what are some of your interests? And then they put me in like an LC, a learning community, where they assigned me a certain amount of classes. And then one of them was art history. And because history was something that my dad had really forced me to study, especially about Taiwan for so long, I had like such an aversion to it. I didn't want to touch history. I thought art was this beautiful freedom of expression. And why do we have to tie it into history? History is so oppressive and boring. It's just a bunch of numbers about somebody who made a decision somewhere along the line who created something else. And so for half of the semester, I really, really struggled until we got to, this painting. It's
so what is that? I mean, I see what it is, but is it a famous thing?
It's a famous painting. Okay. So for those of us who aren't watching, it's I have a tattoo on the inside of my forearm that's like a line sketchwork of a male and female couple under an umbrella with a lamppost, and it's from a impressionist painting by Gustave Caillebotte.
Okay.
Called Rainy Day in Paris from like the late 1800s.
Okay, yeah.
And it was about sort of the isolation of the human condition, even if you're surrounded by beautiful people and a beautiful city. And it just really resonated with me. And then learning the context for that, and then probably because I had more historical context for France, it really, really resonated with me. And then in that whole class, like nobody else understood what that painting was about. And then up until that painting, I hadn't understood what art history was about.
Right.
And it was just one of those moments where it really clicked.
Yeah.
For me. Cool. So actually, I'm still thinking about it, that I might want to go into sort of studying like art history or like art and society, or even like music and society.
Interesting.
How different artistic expressions are a reflection of, you know, societal change or societal stagnancy, or how people can use it as a method of expression, or, you know, what identity means in terms of these things, which is something that I still really, really struggle with as an artist, quote unquote.
Well, as an artist, not like, I'm talking about identity. So, not personally, but as an artist. I mean, is there a difference in terms of your own self-identity compared to your persona as a artist in that way?
I think, in a way, my artist persona is probably my most idealized self. She's a bit witty, she's a bit charming, a bit of like a je ne sais quoi, and has enough energy to socialize with people, but enough sass to put people down without really caring about the consequences. And she's infinitely more patient than I am. She's more patient than I am, and she has a way of commanding attention with no embarrassment or ego, which I really struggle with on like a regular day-to-day because I'm actually very introverted and have a fair bit of anxiety. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, I feel like it's a little bit like acting when you're stepping into a character then if you're in your artist life. But isn't music kind of ingrained or throughout your whole life? So when do you have that other self? Only, I mean, whenever you step off stage or?
Actually, I think when I'm on stage is the easiest. When I step off the stage, especially right after I step off the stage, before I get home, when people are still seeing me as the performer, and I'm still sort of in that persona and they want to interact with me, that's when it's most tiring to me. Because I'm not able to channel the music or the art or whatever, but then I have to interact with them in an interpersonal way that is a bit too close to like my raw self. So yeah, you know, sometimes I'll go on stage and I'll pour my heart out into a song and then it'll really, really resonate with somebody. And I'll come off stage, I'll be exhausted. And someone will want to talk to me for an hour about this one time they saw this or they did this when they were younger. And it's really great. It's really, really great that my art can help inspire these feelings in people. But at the same time, you know, I'm not a therapist. I don't have infinite energy, and I want to be able to be there for, I don't know, my fans or people who are supporting me, but sometimes I'm not equipped for it. And I wish people knew that more. It's this weird sort of dehumanization of, like, not to call myself a celebrity, but, you know, like people in the spotlight. How athletes or actors, they're always constantly expected to be receptive to their fans or, you know, understanding of feedback, or like if somebody, like I have a really good friend who's a creator and she started creating this kind of stuff initially, and then later on she started creating stuff that was more true to herself, and then people started following her because of the earlier stuff is now telling her like, this is not you, we don't like this you know, like go back to that. And so it's really hard, I think. It's actually pretty difficult, which is why I'm really glad I didn't start doing music until I was 25, 26.
Was that when I first met you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
when I moved back.
Red Room.
Red Room.
Yeah, so before we get to that part, but when you moved back, why did you decide to move back then?
That was an accident.
Oh.
So I finished my MBA, and I had already been accepted into the PhD program at American University, and also at a master's program of politics at New School in New York.
Your grades did get better.
I did, yeah. I went to France for a year, and then in college for an exchange. And then I came back to Taiwan for a year to like take care of some family stuff. And 2 years of being away from like a rigorous academic environment where there was structure and purpose. I got back to school and I was like, oh my God, this is so nice. I really, really love it. And I just basically had like a 4.0 for the rest of my time.
Wow. But that was when you were taking the art history thing?
That was after.
Oh, after. Because I was saying, if you are really engaged in what you're studying and stuff, that really gives kind of a lot of energy and stuff.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed my electives in college. I took some really, really cool art classes. I actually ended up doing an art minor because I took so many art classes, like ceramic sculpture, analog photography, oil painting, charcoal sketching. Like it was really great. And I also took a bunch of really cool academic classes. I took these are two classes I talk about a lot. I took a class called The Politics of Terrorism and another class called The Economics of Genocide.
Whoa, dark stuff.
Really dark, but really, really interesting, really relevant now.
Wow, yeah, exactly.
But I decided I wanted to go back into academia. Like I do have a passion for politics. I do have a passion for social impact and social change and discourse and dialogue and all these things. And so I wanted to go back into studying politics and hopefully getting a PhD so I could either teach or advise or, you know, get into, I don't know, think tanks, something like that, research.
Yeah.
And I came back for the summer, just after my MBA, between my master's. And I was like, oh, I'm back for the summer. I'm here for 2 months, 3 months. Just gonna relax a little bit, maybe take some Spanish classes, why not? And
French, German, Spanish, English, Chinese. Right.
I also studied Russian somewhere along the way and basically forgotten all of it. I've forgotten basically all of my Russian and German. It's not a thing. And then I changed my LinkedIn to Taipei just to see what options there were, maybe as like part-time work or an internship, something to sort of jumpstart me back into like a different mindset after my MBA. And I got a message like a week after I did that saying, hi, you know, my name is so-and-so. I work for Google Taiwan, and I was wondering if you'd like to come in for an interview. We're looking for somebody who speaks French who has a business background. And I said, oh, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen?
Right.
You know, even if I don't get the job, at least I go, you know, see Google. It's pretty cool. It's a fun story to tell people. And then, so I went in for the interview. It was very chill, very informal. And that same day, they were like, can you come back next week for a second interview? Okay, sure. All right, prepare these things. Okay, prepare second interview. And then that following weekend, they called me and they were like, what do you want your salary to be?
Wow.
I was like, oh, okay, wow. Let me think about it. And so I corresponded with the school to see if I could maybe defer my admissions for a year. And they said no, unless it's for like a big medical thing or something. They had a few specific cases where I could defer, and my case was not one. So I said, okay, then I give up my admissions, my scholarship, everything. And I'm gonna work at Google for, I was thinking maybe 2 years, save up some money, get it on my resume, you know, connect with Taiwan, connect with my family, and then go back to the States, like reapply for everything. And at that point, I didn't really have any plans other than that. And the rug got yanked out from me when one day we got called into the office, like the entire team, in February, so like 7 months after I moved back. And they were like, hi, sorry, there have been some changes internally. The entire team is dismissed immediately.
Whoa.
As of today, please hand in your badges and laptops. You get 3 months severance. Like, we wish you the best of luck.
Did you guys ever find out why that happened? Because Google is so huge.
I'm not getting into it. I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, let's not get into that one. Politics.
Politics. Everything's politics. But I met some really, really cool people on the team because everybody had to be trilingual.
Right.
So I was the only person in charge of the French market. I'm still really, really good friends with the girls in charge of the Japanese market, the Italian market, and the German market.
Wow.
So like really, really cool people. And yeah, around December, right before I got fired, was the first time I went to Red Room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So Red Room, you went there and performed. Was that, did you know about Red Room? Did you know about the Stage Time and Wine, or you knew about it?
I had heard through a friend who had told me that like every third Saturday, you know, there's a open mic event. And it happened to be a third Saturday in December where I didn't have like a date or a business trip. And I was just like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, oh, I think this is happening. Why don't I go and try to see like what's going on? And then I went, and it was a hit, completely unexpected, and that's just sort of how everything got started, super unexpectedly.
Wow. I mean, I feel like sometimes life kind of does that to you. Kind of your path just goes this way, then something changes, you go this way.
It's about, this is going to sound super woo-woo, but it's...
No, I'm into woo-woo.
It's really about just like sort of having faith in the universe.
Yeah.
Because no matter what plans you have, like no matter how sure you are of something, tomorrow it could all just fall apart.
Yeah.
And later on, it will work out. You'll see that it had to happen that way for a different reason. And so it's just been, it's been one roller coaster after another. And I'm trying to practice a lot of like grace and patience and faith. But sometimes it is so hard. Sometimes it's really hard.
So what do you think that you were being led to based on this random decision, or not random, for that night anyway, because you didn't have a date, you didn't have anything planned, and you went to Red Room. What was the lesson or the path that you were supposed to?
I think the lesson was that, and this is something that a really, really close friend of mine has repeatedly told me over the past like 7 years. But he's repeatedly said to me that my voice is super important. That my voice needs to be heard. Because I am somebody who will actively try to use my voice for good. And the way that I speak, the way that I express myself, it touches people. And so I think that was sort of my biggest takeaway. I still have a really hard time accepting it. Mostly because I think I don't want to let it get to my ego. And then also, you know, imposter syndrome, especially amongst women, even if they're super successful, is very, very prevalent. So I'm still debating, you know, what place do I have as an artist, as a musician, especially I'm not formally trained. I don't have any accolades.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, because I wonder if it's because we're here in Taiwan where titles and education and, you know, all of that kind of stuff is so really important, right?
It really matters.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you're in the States, it's not so.
Not quite as much.
As much, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is it that you're trying to, you know, using your voice, I hear that you're trying to get a message out there, or using your voice to whatever. What do you have in your mind what that is? What message are you trying to give to people that are listening to you when you're singing?
The scene from Miss Congeniality just popped into my head.
What?
Like, I just want world peace.
Well, you gotta get back in politics again. You know?
I know. I really do want world peace. But I have realized that the political systems, in the ways that they're currently set up, are not an actually effective means of affecting change. And I think we're seeing that more than ever, as we're seeing so many people being failed by the systems that we do have in place.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the actual change, a lot of the revolutions are starting at a very, very grassroots level. It's very media-based. It's very social media-based. It's interpersonal. It's artistic, you know. So through the arts, I think because it's such a pure and almost primal way of expression in the human condition, I think really, if people can find the way to access like vulnerability and truth through art, either by consuming it or sharing it or creating it, then it would actually make the world a better place. Oh, that sounds so idealistic, but I mean, it's true. I think it's true.
Yeah, I think something has to change, basically. Like you said, the systems that are broken. I mean, in Taiwan, I've not been here that long, but I know in the U.S. has been broken and it needs to change. And there's got to be a shift. And so if it has to come from art and music or something like that, because I kind of want to step back a little bit about social media, because social media, there's so much crap that's out there
There
too,
is,
you know, which
there is.
Yeah, so trying to find the balance and everything like that is difficult. But then I feel like the people that are listening are the ones that need to be in a certain place where they can receive.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So like you're also a songwriter, right?
Yeah.
So when did you start? I mean, writing songs. I mean, yeah. Did that just always?
Well, I mean, like every sad girl has ever been, I started off as a poet.
Oh no, poet didn't know, and you didn't know it.
But yeah, I didn't know it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, I mean, I've always really loved sort of playing with the meanings and textures and structures of words to sort of convey my feeling in a more abstract way. Like writing has always been really, really easy to me. And in a way, I think it's because if I see it written down, then it's been sort of like made tangible.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, as opposed to like if I'm easily distracted, I could be talking to you, I get distracted by that, I've forgotten what I just said, and there's no way for me to sort of really look back right now and see what I'm saying. But with writing down words, I can really see them and sort of chew on them, you know, and then I'll sort of, mull one around for a bit and say, no, this is not exactly how I want it to be. And then I can tweak it a little bit. And then finally, at the end, I will have this very pure expression of what I want to say. Yeah. And so that's always been really easy for me. And I wrote a poem one time about sort of like trying to find the answer, trying to find my home in a person. That's never the answer. And then I sent it to one of my really, really good friends. And this is really another sort of weird stroke of universe. So as you may recall earlier in this podcast, we talked about me going to France, me studying French at 8.
Yes.
And then when I was 10, my mom and my French teacher just airdropped me and the other 2 kids in that class, one of whom was the French teacher's son, just airdropped the 3 of us Taiwanese kids into this French summer school program in the suburbs of Paris with a whole bunch of Turkish kids. It was like no English.
Whoa.
It was just Turkish and French. And so when I was there, I met this other Japanese kid who had been also dropped into that program. And we just kept in loose touch over the years and then got back into closer touch when Facebook came out. And I was going through, like undergraduate studying politics and all that. And then he was going through med school. And at one point we realized like we were both like really into music, and he actually had a contract in Japan for a little bit. And so we stayed in touch, and then I sent him this poem that I had written, and he was just like, Victor, you depressed? I was like, I don't know, I think a bit. And he was like, are you gonna be all right for the next like hour or so? Can I leave you alone for a bit? And I said, yeah, sure. Like, I'll be fine. Thanks for checking with me. And then he came back in like an hour and a half, and he said, I wrote a song to the poem you wrote. And he had turned it into a song.
Wow.
So that was sort of like my first songwriting experience. And I was just like, oh, it's that easy. But I didn't know how to write music because I had no concept of music theory. Everything I had played was through sheet music on piano. I didn't know how to improvise. I still don't know how to improvise. And so when I got into songwriting, it was very much sort of like an accident from just playing so much guitar in my downtime that I knew enough chords and I'd listened to enough music that I sort of knew the feeling of how I wanted things to go. And with my limited knowledge of chords, I was like, okay, I think I can kind of make something out of this. And then just with my, I guess, affinity and ease of storytelling, it just came together pretty easily. But songwriting for me is not an easy task because it has to come, it has to be sort of, like in Chinese we would say 天时地利人和. So like the right set of circumstances, the right place, the right time.
Yeah.
You know, I can't, there's some people who can just sit down and they think, oh, I sort of want these chord progressions. I want this sort of feeling. Oh, let's modulate this into that. And then they'll come up with something. But for me, it's very much like I have to have a feeling and it has to ferment. It has to grow. I have to have a starting point for a story. And the story has to have a punch of a message. And then I have to hear some sort of melody that comes into my head. And it has to all come together like that. And so I don't have that many written pieces of work. So I've been songwriting since like 2016, 17, not that long.
So is it because you write songs based on things that are really happening to you where you can really relate? Is that, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't really write about abstract things that I don't relate to.
Right.
It's very much based on empathy and personal experience. Yeah.
So what do you like better? Writing and getting your feelings and things like that down, or singing it, or vocalizing?
Very different, very different modes of expression, because when I write, I'm assuming nobody's going to see it.
Oh, that's interesting, because most writers would, think that they would be. Unless you're just thinking of just for your own, like a personal journal type of thing.
It's almost like a journal.
Right.
I have, I feel like I shouldn't reveal this, but I also think it's kind of funny. But I have in my notes app, in my phone, I just have like different initials of different men that have tormented me. And every once in a while, I'll just like think of something that has to do with this person. And I'll pull up that note and I'll just add to it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
You got to get it right. Well, how many people are there actually? Initials.
We're not talking about that. I spend way too much of my energy focusing on romantic interests, and that's something I really need to work on. But
yeah, well, you know, there was one thing that I read that you wrote actually in your bio. You said, I take sad songs and make them sadder.
Yeah.
Is this the reason, you know, partly related to the reason that you're just mentioning, or it's just whole nother thing entirely?
It started off almost as a joke because I was performing at Ron Bar, and then the person in charge of social media at the time, she said, you need a tagline, you need something snappy, you need something that's going to be identifiable.
Branding again.
Yeah, branding. Yeah. And she said, she's like, I've seen your shows, like I really love the way you sing, like it's really impressive how, like, I thought a song was sad, but you can sing it and you make it even sadder.
Wow. Okay.
And I said, okay, maybe that's it. You know, I take sad songs and I make them sadder.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think there's something about being able to tap into sadness in the form of art that is so safe. Because some people don't have the words or the mode of expression to really fully access what they're feeling, because it's much easier to be happy. It's much easier to be angry. You know, these are feelings that are much easier to be dealt with. But when you're feeling sad or afraid or vulnerable, it just feels like free fall. So if you're able to let yourself sink into the sadness of specific art forms, then it's almost safe. There's almost a safety to it. So, you know, me taking a sad song and making it sadder is almost an invitation for the audience to just, you know, cry. I love when people cry at my shows. I love when people cry at my shows. You know,
I feel like
it's great.
Sadness is kind of like, I mean, yes, happiness is also, but sadness is something that so many people have, and they're not really necessarily able to express it out in. And the fact that your songs elicit that emotion, that's really, really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then, if you're talking about sad songs, and that means the songs that you sing are more in that style, or in that is it genre? Can I say that or something?
Sad songs?
Is it jazz style, or is not? It's not country. That
not necessarily. Like no, I know. I don't do country. There are many things I will do. Country is so far not one of them.
But there's a lot of sad country, you know, country
There's
songs.
a lot of sad country songs.
Yeah.
It's most of my stuff. I mean, you would categorize it as singer-songwriter, but a lot of covers that I do are more R&B. I also sing jazz, and jazz is a genre that's. This is a very, very interesting subject because it talks a lot about love, and it talks, a lot of it is about female love and how a woman is like so sad and so understanding and so willing to be put through, da 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 da. And these are all sang by women, but most of these songs are written by men. So there's this sort of weird gap between identities or the reality or like what should be true, how much understanding we should afford somebody. So there are songs that are gorgeous. They're beautiful, 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 but there's sort of a disconnect in a way when I sing it still. I love jazz. And some songs really, really hit home for me, but a lot of it doesn't really sink in. And it wasn't until my really, really good friend, Marte Musabah, who's an Argentinian pianist who lives here in Taiwan, invited me to sing tango a couple of years ago, that I really got to access some intense, nitty-gritty feelings, because jazz is pretty. Jazz is really, really pretty, but tango is rough and calloused and shattered, and it was the first time I was able to access anger in music, and that was really cool.
So you sing tango, because when I think of tango, it's just the Latin dance style.
Yeah, glamorous. It's very passionate.
Okay, wow. So how does there are songs that are specifically written in the tango, and it's the same tango that people dance to.
There are slower and faster, and then there's waltzes. Yeah, within the grander genre of tango, there are many different subgenres.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, it's really, really, it was really cool for me to be able to just fully sink into not just like a soft, quiet sadness or like a small broken sadness. It was like I'm ripping my heart out from my chest and I'm ripping it to shreds and I'm throwing it at your feet. You know, it's very, very dramatic, very, very intense. But the fact that I'm able to access this kind of really intense feeling with the safety of knowing how the song starts and how it ends and that it will end is such a great release for me. It's such a great release.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about the time you just said when you finish a song and you just been so into it and somebody, you know, wants to talk to you for a song. I can imagine what a
oh my gosh.
sudden, you know, change that would be, and how hard it would be to do that.
Yeah.
But the songs that you sing, you know, it's kind of like acting where people have to get into character, right? And they get their emotions for whatever piece that they're doing, either through something in their life or in the words. Because lately I've taken this other class that really says if you focus on the words in itself is really eliciting emotions and stuff. You don't necessarily need to, you know, dig deep into
have like
your
a
past and
backstory,
stuff like that, and then get tied into that kind of emotion and stuff. And so for you then, is it just mostly just seeing the words, listening to the music, and you can just get in?
Focusing really sort of deep on the feelings the words elicit. And then, I mean, people don't talk about this enough, but every word has a texture and a flavor to it. You know, and especially polyglots will know that in different languages you have different personalities.
Okay, polyglots are people that speak
multiple languages.
Okay.
Yeah. And you have different personalities, and then each language feels different in your mouth. Different. And then so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to sing. That's why I love singing Portuguese. I love singing Brazilian music because they have nasal tones, they have sounds that are like it's very sticky, gooey, it's very sweet, it's very decadent.
Right.
And there's a song that I love called Luisa by Antonio Carlos Jobim, and there's this part where he goes, escuta agora a canção que eu fiz pra te esquecer, Luisa. And it's just the way the words sort of melt into each other, and then there's this end of a phrase where he ends on the word corazón, which means heart. I know that underneath all of that frozen snow lives a beating heart, is the line of the lyric.
Right.
And then in the recording, if you listen to it, he goes corazón. And then that nasal tone just releases into a sigh, like into a nasal sigh of like resignation. And there's no other language that I've sang that has been able to access that sort of, it ties in so much to a physical reaction, you know, and it's so visceral and it's so raw.
Because, so if you sing in different languages, you just said Portuguese, but you also sing in French, English, Chinese.
Taiwanese,
and so, and Taiwanese, and Italian as well. Oh my gosh.
Spanish.
Oh, and Spanish. Oh my gosh. So do each of their, I just understood what you said about this song in Portuguese that elicits this. I mean, in other languages, is it just a different specialty that's tied to their language that you notice in terms of, you know, a feeling or a style?
Definitely, because the way, like the resonance of language, the way different grammar is formed, syntax, pronunciation, because, and especially like languages like Mandarin, like Cantonese, that are very, very tonal, that are syllabic languages, the way that people sing and write music are going to be very, very different from languages like Portuguese, like Spanish, like French, or German, where you can sort of connect words to each other and the tone of it doesn't really matter. Because a different tone is not going to mean a different thing. So yeah, it's definitely very, very different specialties, and certain languages will lend better to certain styles of music, I think.
Which language do you like to sing in the best? I mean, the most?
Definitely Portuguese.
Portuguese. Okay.
Portuguese, and then Spanish. I love, there's something so satisfying, like if I'm really, really leaning into the hysteria of a song to really just be able to go, you know, like it's such a, you feel the vibration of it. I don't just through your entire,
you say, just do that now. I feel like, you know.
Like I'm trying to think of a tango song, like, nostalgia de escuchar su risa loca, you know, like it's like this, like it's almost like a machine gun. You're hanging on to something and then throwing it out. It's way more visceral. It's way more violent.
Yeah.
Whereas with Portuguese, it almost feels like a soft sort of like buoyancy, like floating on a wave, and it's
Okay, so what's your favorite aspect about performing or singing?
My favorite aspect is sort of becoming the music, I think. Becoming the vessel for the music. It's a lot of people will talk about finding your identity through creating, but I think if you cover music in a very, very genuine and sort of reverent way, you become a vessel for the history, for the meaning of things. And it's a huge honor, I think. Because I was just in Brazil for the first time, and I'd been studying and singing Brazilian music and the Portuguese language for years now at this point. And then to go to Brazil and then to sit in like this tiny little dingy bar where Bossa Nova was born. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. And just watch this band completely jive it out. Yeah. I genuinely just sat there and I just cried.
Wow.
Like the overwhelming the significance of the history of all the hopes and dreams and passions of everybody that came before, you know, it just washes through you. And I think that's my favorite part about performing. It's to be able to become part of that history, which is why it's so frustrating for me to see people create art for the sake of popularity or for the sake of, you know, becoming famous or doing something that, I mean, I can't say there's no respect to art, but you can definitely feel when something has less emotional significance.
Yeah.
And that stuff has its value also. But some people will sing really, really intense music or really, really meaningful music and just sort of, you know, think of it as like elevator music or not really put too much respect into it. And it's pretty heartbreaking for me to witness.
Well, I think people can tell too when somebody's singing from the heart and singing with the feeling compared to somebody that's just memorized the word. It's just like acting kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So when you were in Brazil this time, did you participate or go up on stage and sing? You did.
Oh my gosh,
did you just like ask them, can I sing, or how did you?
Actually, I did not ask. I sang twice in Rio and once in São Paulo. And all 3 times I did not ask.
Did they know that you were somehow a singer?
In Rio, so really quickly when I went to Rio, I was told that every Monday night, at this place called Pedra do Sal, which is called Little Africa, and it was the port where all the African slaves were brought in and sold, and that was the birthplace of samba music.
Oh my gosh.
Every Monday night they have this huge samba party, like huge, and I oh my God, it was incredible. It was incredible witnessing so many people, just hundreds of people in this tiny, tiny little alley, and musicians, people dancing, people moving, people singing along. It was the way the history of the music permeated through every single stone in that place. Like, I'm getting so emotional. It was really overwhelming, but it was so overwhelming that I was just like, okay, I can't stay here for too long. I'm here by myself. I'm a little tired. I'm gonna leave. And then as I was leaving, I heard live music of guitar and cavaquinho, which is like this little like guitar looking thing. And then so it was just these 2 musicians playing in a restaurant. And I was like, oh, that's incredible. I'm gonna go sit and I'm gonna listen. And I asked them, you know, like what time, like a música, you know, cuánto horas? Like, oh, until, you know, 10, 11. I'm like, great, cool, I'm staying. And then during their break, one of the musicians came and like to each table and was like, hi, you know, if you would like to give a tip, like here's our wiring, or you can give cash. And because I was so moved by it, I just like gave like the most amount of money I could give. Which is, I mean, it was like equivalent to 500 NT.
Right.
Which is
but
probably,
for them, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. And then, so I was just like, thank you so much. Like, this was really, really incredible. Like, I'm so glad I walked by this. And I think I was too appreciative to be just a regular person. And he looked at me and he was like,
is she a stalker?
And he was like, are you a musician? You're a musician. I was like, yeah, I think only other musicians can understand the pain, can only appreciate. And then he said, oh, what kind of music do you do? I was like, oh, I'm a singer. Oh, what do you sing? Like jazz, bossa nova, tango. And he said, tango, I'm from Argentina.
Oh, okay.
Would you like to come up and sing a couple of songs with us? And I was just like, you know what? Why not? I was so nervous. I was so nervous, but it was good. I did 2 songs with them. And then same thing in the tiny little bar, in the jazz bar called Little Club. You know, I was actually planning on leaving during the halftime during the break. It's not football. To go to another performance, and then the musicians were like, oh, why are you leaving? I said, oh, I'm going to Lapa to go see like a samba thing. And they said, oh, those things don't even start until 10, 11 p.m. You know, you can stay for the second set. What do you do? Is this your first time in Brazil? How are you liking it? I was like, oh yeah, it's my first time. I'm a musician. Oh, a musician? What do you do? You're a singer? You're a singer? Oh, do you want to come up and sing a couple of songs with us? I was like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, no, you should totally. And oh my gosh, I was so nervous. I was so nervous, but it was really, really good. It felt so good.
Yeah.
Because everybody was just really into it. Everybody was really grooving. Everybody was locked in. There was such like a curiosity, such like a playfulness to it.
Wow.
And then in São Paulo, I was out at this jazz bar with a friend where they had, you know, like a simple set of a singer and a guitarist. And my friend had spoken to the bartender and was like, oh, she's a singer. She should go sing. I was like, no, why would you do this to me? But then I was like, you know what? if the universe is presenting this opportunity to me,
Yeah.
I might as well go do it. So I did sing there, and it was a great shock to my system because it's been a very long time since I felt nervous getting on stage, which sounds arrogant, but really is just, I'm just exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, if you get used to it and you're self-confident in what it is, your materials and songs or whatever it is, you would tend to be not so nervous.
But also, I think I've gotten way too comfortable here.
Okay, interesting.
Because way too comfortable here.
Okay, because that just brings up something like since your time in Brazil, since you did those songs, have you performed since you've been back?
No, tonight's going to be the first time.
Okay, because I was going to say, oh, does it change or shifted something within you in terms of, you know, music and what you...
I guess we'll find out tonight. But it's really funny because tonight is I'm actually going to be singing Brazilian music.
Oh, really?
I didn't plan for this. I thought it was just going to be a regular jazz gig, but tonight I'm doing bossa nova. So I'm bringing all of that Brazilian energy back and see how it comes out on stage.
Because you just mentioned too about Taiwan is feeling
comfortable.
Yeah, and you know that maybe it's, you know, some message to you that with this experience that you take it abroad again or something.
Yeah, I've actually been researching sort of education opportunities in Brazil. And even if I can't go do like a full program there, because I'd have to speak Portuguese of a certain level, I could at least go and study, you know, music with musicians for a couple of months, see what happens, and then sort of immerse myself in that experience, pick up more of their ways, their passion, you know. This is not going to be a great conversation with my mom. She doesn't.
Yeah, that was going to lead me to the next question because I was saying, what do your parents think about your career now? Because it's so way off from what your dad wanted for you. Your mom probably didn't think that, but you know, what are...
Well, my dad and I are no longer on speaking terms for a whole host of reasons.
Okay.
But, you know, if you can glean from my childhood, I don't think it's very surprising of an outcome. My mom, she alternates between being sort of ambivalent to supportive. Like every once in a while I'll show her a clip of me, I don't know, performing at a festival to, I don't know, like 8,000, 10,000, 30,000 people. Or I'll be singing a song that she really likes and she'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. That's so cool. And then other days I'll just wake up and then I'll get a lecture from her about how I need to find a real job and there's no job security in music and why don't I just go to an office and get a real salary? What am I going to do when I retire? Just, I don't know. I tried the office thing. I really didn't like it. You know, I don't mind working in a more structured environment, but I want to learn things. Not saying you can't learn things in an office, but corporate environments aren't made to be stimulating.
Yeah.
So
it depends on what your goal is, though, you know. I mean, from your point of view, yeah, for sure, an artist's point of view. So we kind of talked about what your favorite thing about your career and your entertaining. What about negatives? Because just speaking to people that might want to get into the industry or what you singing, what would you say is something to look out for?
Well, the biggest thing that jumps to my mind right now is something, it shouldn't be an issue, but being a woman in the music industry is hard, is hard because people sort of only expect so much from you. You know, where you're a musician, but then if you're a female musician, you're a female musician. You're never a male musician. Male musician is the default. A female musician is sort of like an asterisk.
Okay.
And we're expected to look and act a certain way that men aren't expected to look and act. Like I have male friends who will just like go to either jams or gigs, like more casual gigs in like, you know, slippers and a t-shirt. But if I ever show up without makeup or like in sweatpants or in flip-flops, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you today?
Yeah,
and that's not an issue just in music.
Yeah. Yeah, double standard. Double standard.
It's
a
not
lot
an
of
issue
it,
just
yeah.
in music.
Do you think it's more so in Taiwan compared to if you're in the States?
I think for sure.
Yeah.
I think for sure. I think in Taiwan, appearances simultaneously matter more and less. It's really weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to a wedding and you see people dressed in the most casual, disrespectful way, but then if I go to a gig and I don't have like full-blown makeup, you know, I'm somehow doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. I've been lucky enough not to deal with too much sort of sexual harassment or inappropriateness. Probably because I have a look on my face that just says, "Don't mess with me, I will kick you."
Yeah, very direct American way.
I lived in New York for almost 10 years. Do not mess with me. But yeah, I mean, there definitely have been times where people have like touched me inappropriately, or I remember at one time I came off the stage at one of my residencies and this guy looked at me, this Taiwanese person looked at me, and in Chinese he asked me, he was like, "Can I ask you a rude question?" I said, "I'd rather you not." And he said, "When you wear a gown like that, do you wear a bra or not?"
Oh my gosh.
Like, why is that relevant? How is that, why did you think it was okay for that to come out of your mouth?
Yeah, and you said no, but you didn't say.
Yeah.
You said, "I'd rather you not," though, but still, he wouldn't have heard whatever it is that you said in terms of no anyway.
Yeah.
Even if you were.
And it's just, it's very frustrating because a lot of men don't realize how unsafe it is for women to reject men. Because we don't really have an issue with the come on most of the time. It's the fact that we can't safely reject them without being subjected to some sort of verbal or physical violence. You know, if it's not like you know, like there, in more drastic cases, there have been people who have been killed for rejecting a stranger. And then in less drastic cases, it's like, "Oh, whatever, I didn't even think you were that hot anyways," or like, "Oh, you're so stuck up." You know, there's some sort of retaliation.
Yeah.
There's no safety in rejecting unwanted advances.
Yeah.
So that's, as somebody who is in the spotlight, definitely I'm put in a position way more than I would like to be personally, where I have to interact with more people, where I have to deal with more attention. That was probably my least favorite part of doing what I do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I just want you to appreciate what I do and then leave it at that. You know, support me from afar. You don't have to try to propose to me on my Facebook post.
Then aside from types of sexual harassment and things like that, are there anything else that you feel that people should be careful about coming into them?
People need to really know what they want, which is hard because what you want is going to constantly change. But if you're going into it solely for the purpose of pleasing others, you're never going to really be happy in what you do. And you're never going to please everybody. So if you're only trying to figure out, oh, what can I make that people will like? Of course, you need to factor that into a certain degree. But if you're basing your entire sort of rise and fall on the viewpoints of others, you know, you're really never going to be able to be sustainable. So you need to be able to find a version of yourself that is genuine enough that you can live with that person for the duration of your career.
Yeah.
Or you have to be bold enough to modulate and then be willing to sort of face the consequences of that. Very early on, somebody told me, you know, no matter how good the gig is, no matter how much exposure you get from it, do not lower your price. Don't lower your price. Do not lower your base value. You know, do not compromise your worth just because you think it might lead to other things. If somebody really respects you, and they should, then they will pay you what you're worth.
Right.
But if they don't, it doesn't matter how many other potential, of course there are exceptions to this, but yeah, there have definitely been times where I've been asked to compromise on things or faced, I guess, not outright disrespect, but I do feel like a lot of people in Taiwan especially care so much about the appearances of things.
Face.
The face of it, the face of it, you know, the way I do my hair, the way I do my makeup, the color of my gown.
What purse you're carrying.
A purse I'm carrying.
Yeah, you know.
I wanted to hire this one pianist for a gig one time, and the guy told me, "Oh, sorry, can you pick somebody else? Because that guy doesn't have the right look." Who cares? This is a music gig. This is a music gig, you know? Like, what? Go hire a model.
Yeah.
But a model can't sing. But then again, so many models here will get gigs before I do because they have the right look.
Yeah.
I was in communications with this one client recently, who I was referred to by somebody else who referred me. And after 2 days of negotiating, at the very, very end, she said, "Hey, I'm sorry, we're going to go with somebody else. The people who are hiring want a white person."
Yeah.
It's like, if you're looking for a jazz singer, you know, like, okay, it's great. It's really fantastic. And I'm pretty sure men don't run into this nearly as much. Especially if they're not a singer. So it's get ready to deal with a lot of BS. And so that's my biggest warning. The worst part of art is people.
Yeah.
I love people. I'm doing it for the people, but the worst part of art is also the people.
Which is weird. Yeah. Because, you know, that bias or racial, whatever like that is prevalent in acting industry too, you know.
Sure.
I mean, you can be crap, you cannot even be an actor, you just have the face, you don't know how to do shit, but your face is white and you're good. And you get triple the price of somebody. Even a Westerner, like, you know, me, consider Westerner that has, just because I have an Asian face. So yeah, it's really prevalent here in Taiwan. Unfortunately, I think all in Asia, Southeast Asia.
That's like a whole other issue, but
Yeah,
definitely.
So for you then, have you done any, the songs that you've written, have you done an album, or is that in the future, or?
I have not done an album yet. I have a few songs that I am in the process of recording, and it's been going on for a long time because I sort of wanted to go into it by myself. I was very lost. I changed the idea a few times, but now I've settled on sort of doing a mini album. And the problem is I hired a specific drummer that I wanted, and then after I paid him, he had to leave the country, and we're trying to figure out how to record him in his home country, and this whole thing has been going on for a while. But I do have a few singles that I've released in collaboration with other people.
Okay.
And I'm hoping, I wrote a new song in January, inspired by another breakup. And I actually think I'm gonna release it as a single this year because it's so different from anything else that I've done.
Oh, really?
It's not really singer-songwriter. It's a bit more grungy, sultry. I sent it to a really good friend of mine, and he was just like, it's really interesting. And I said, "Oh, you don't like it?" And it's just different. And I was like, you're hearing the ego in it. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but this song has a bit more ego." But it was, you know, me self-comforting after I got dumped. So I needed the ego.
I feel like that comes with, inspiration. That's what I was going to say. I feel like that happens a lot when you write your songs. Or I remember the first song that you wrote.
Oh no!
Have to do with a breakup or something like that, right?
It did.
So maybe you gotta start writing like real different songs and not about breakups, and they'll just change or shift them.
I have tried. Trust me. Oh Lord, I tried. It has not worked. I'll see. I'll see. Maybe if I get good enough to write in a different language, I can write about something else.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah. So, if anybody wants to come and watch you sing or listen to you sing, where would they go? And social media, where would they go?
Social media. My Instagram handle is Vic Sun, VYXUN, and you can find me on Facebook at Vicky Sun Music. That's VICKYSUN Music.
Okay.
I also have a YouTube channel. It's very neglected. I'm hoping to revive that at some point.
It's hard work,
It's hard work. It's hard self-managing. I don't have anybody to help me create my content.
Yeah. Well, I'm an old Asian lady, so it's been super hard for me to learn all the stuff.
You're killing it. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. So, okay, and on your Facebook and Instagram, you're gonna post where you're gonna be singing, physically or something like that.
Yeah. I haven't gotten around to this month's calendar yet, but I'm working on it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Vicky, thanks for coming and talking to me. It was really good to share, so much of yourself.
Thank you.
Today.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to thank you folks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.